just heard and put it to Mark Regev, who's the chief spokesperson for the Prime Minister of Israel. He joins us now from Jerusalem. I just wonder what your response is to what you've just heard, which is a kind of description of an anarchy, really, and a chaos in the Palestinian community in East Jerusalem, which is beyond anybody's control, isn't it?
Yes, I agree with much of what the previous speaker said. We're seeing across the Middle East this new radicalism, this new extremism, which ISIS represents. And there's no doubt that that's also affected parts of Palestinian society, parts of Palestinian young people. It's a pity because it's ultimately a reactionary phenomenon, a very nihilistic phenomenon. The people who are stabbing Israelis, trying to kill them, they're not interested in peace. They're not interested in getting the peace process back on track. They're not interested in coexistence. They want to kill us.
And do you see any responsibility of the Israelis for creating the conditions in which that flourishes? Because that was the other thing that Mr. Awad was saying there.
Well, actually, East Jerusalem Palestinians have a standard of living, a standard of education, a quality of life which is probably one of the highest in the region. And they have the full benefits of the Israeli state. Let's be clear here. The recent violence that we've unfortunately seen has been triggered by these ridiculous allegations, these lies about so-called Israeli conspiracies to destroy the Muslim holy sites on the Al-Aqsa Mosque on the Temple Mount, when nothing could be further from the truth. And my government, my Prime Minister has said repeatedly, we will vigorously enforce the current status quo. All the holy sites of all faiths have been safe and will continue to be safe and protected under Israeli control. And yet you have this irrational, extreme ISIS-type mantra out there with these irrational fears that somehow the Israelis are about to blow up the mosques.
And you say
that's pushing the violence forward.
I hear what you say. Now, your Prime Minister also said today, though, Israel will settle scores for those who are killing and those who are encouraging them. What did he mean by that, the use of those words, settle scores? Israel will settle scores. That doesn't sound like a normal judicial process.
No, in the framework of the law, we will act energetically to protect our people. Terrorists will be brought to justice, and people encouraging terrorism, financing terrorism, recruiting terrorists.
So no reprisals.
Ultimately, we have to protect our people.
So no reprisals, no community punishment for the actions of individuals.
We will target the terrorists, those who are trying to kill our people. We will target those involved in terrorism. We don't see the Palestinian civilian population as our enemy. We never have.
So it sounds like you're saying no reprisals, which is, I think, a change, isn't it, from some of the policies in the past where there have been community reprisals or family reprisals for the actions of individuals.
We have, as a policy, our goal is to deter terrorist attacks. And we face an issue that all democratic societies face in dealing with this sort of extremism. How can you deter a person who wants to commit suicide? Because the normal criminal justice system is built on, if you do something bad, you will be punished. But how do you punish someone and therefore deter him if he's willing to pay the ultimate price, or she's willing to pay the ultimate price? So obviously we have to think of new and creative forms of deterrence.
Is that reprisals on people who haven't?
Things.
Does that does involve reprisals or not? I just want to be clear.
Well, no, in the framework of the law, in the framework of the legal system, and this is something that we inherited from the British when they were the mandatory power here, is we can use things like housing demolitions, which we believe is an effective deterrence to try to prevent these sort of murders.
And so those might be used on this as a response to what we've seen here in Jerusalem today.
They definitely will be. That's one of the decisions I believe the Security Cabinet will be taking tonight. We've found that an effective tool in trying to limit these sort of murderous attacks. And
do you not agree that sometimes what you do in one conflict, in fact, sows the seeds for the next one? Because what we're seeing here are people who are born, you know, in this century, people who are born post-Oslo Accords, who are now taking the view that Israelis should be killed. And one wonders how they got those views. I don't know how we got those views, other than from watching Israeli behavior, if you like, being provoked by that, or feeling they've been provoked by that, from what they've observed from the community they oppose.
Obviously, there's a conflict between Israelis and Palestinians. It's ultimately a political conflict and will hopefully be solved politically when there's a leadership on the Palestinian side that seriously wants to engage on the issues. But can I take issue with the premise of your question? I mean, ultimately, we've seen this sort of violent extremism across the Middle East, in Syria and Iraq, in Libya, in Lebanon. We've seen it in Europe, we've seen it in Britain too. And to explain away this phenomena simply by saying it's the Israelis are doing something wrong, I think is failing to understand the gravity and the importance of this phenomena, which is ultimately not just a regional phenomenon, it's a much larger phenomenon.
All right, Mark Regev, thank you very much indeed.